You know, when we picture empires, we usually think about the big battles, the conquest. But have you ever really stopped to think about what comes next? I mean, the real challenge wasn't just taking the land, it was holding it. How does a tiny ruling class, maybe in just one city, keep millions of people under control? People who probably can't stand them? The answer, it turns out, isn't just about having the biggest army. It's a system. It's a terrifyingly effective idea. And today, we're going to deconstruct that system, the iron architecture of imperial fear.
So this is the fundamental puzzle, right? The big imperial dilemma. Seriously, put yourself in the emperor's shoes for a second. You are outnumbered, maybe 1,000 to 1. Your subjects speak a dozen different languages, they worship different gods, and they definitely don't think you're their great savior. So how do you make them obey? How do you project your power into every single village, every home, even when you're thousands of miles away?
All right, to figure that out, we're going to follow this blueprint. First, we'll dig into the control problem itself. Then, we'll look at the two brutal pillars they built their power on, raw brutality and strategic deportation. After that, we'll see how the boring stuff, bureaucracy, was the glue that held it all together. And finally, we'll ask a tough question. Are these designs really just a thing of the past?
Okay, let's dive into section 1. We really need to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this problem, the problem that this whole architecture of fear was designed to solve. Here's the thing. An emperor can't be everywhere at once. His armies can't patrol every single street. So the real war, it's not fought on the battlefield. It's fought in the mind. The goal is to make people obey, even when no one is watching. You have to make the idea of your power so absolutely terrifying, the consequences of stepping out of line so horribly certain, that the thought of rebellion doesn't even enter their heads.
Which leads us straight to the first and honestly, the most gruesome pillar of control. And it is absolutely crucial to understand this. We're not talking about random violence here. This wasn't about rage or losing control. No, this was about cold, hard, strategic logic.
See that word there? Calculated? That's everything. This wasn't a mob running wild. This was official state policy. The violence had to be a public show, a spectacle. The point wasn't just to punish one rebel. It was to terrorize the thousands who would hear the story. It turned a single, horrific act into a broadcast, a message that screamed, "This is what happens when you cross us." And this really gets to the chilling efficiency of the whole thing. You don't have to burn down every village. You just have to make one example so gruesome, so unforgettable, that nobody else even dreams of stepping out of line. The violence becomes a legend, a ghost story, that polices people's minds far more effectively than any army ever could. But here's the thing about terror. It can fade. Memories get dull, and people get brave again. So empires needed a second pillar, something more permanent. They needed a way to completely re-engineer the societies they conquered. So if brutality is a sledgehammer, this is a surgeon's scalpel. It's not just about punishment anymore. It's about fundamentally breaking a people's spirit. You rip them away from their ancestral lands, and you completely shatter their identity, their social networks, their ability to even organize. A tight-knit community is strong, but uprooted, isolated families, well, they're powerless. And the process? It was just terrifyingly methodical, like a playbook. Step 1, you identify a troublesome group. Step 2, you forcibly march them hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles away. Step 3, and this is the killer move, you resettle their land with people loyal to you. And finally, step 4, you systematically erase their culture. You change the town names, you destroy their records, you forbid their language. At this point, you're not just conquering land, you are actively trying to delete an entire people from history.
Okay, so we have these two gigantic, terrifying pillars, terrorizing people with brutality and shattering societies with deportation. But what holds them together? What turns these strategies into a repeatable, manageable system that can run for centuries?
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Grand strategies are one thing, but actual control is a daily grind. How do you weave that fear into the paperwork, into the daily routines, into the very air that people breathe? Well, the answer is surprisingly boring. Fear needs an administrative backbone to work long-term, and it's the boring stuff that makes it all tick. Laws and decrees, for instance, turn raw violence into so-called justice. That tax collector who shows up every year, he isn't just taking your grain, he's a walking, talking reminder of who's in charge. Super-fast communication lines for their time meant the emperor's threats felt immediate and real, not like some distant problem. And all those official titles, they just create a crystal-clear pyramid of power. It's the bureaucracy that turns fear from a simple emotion into an inescapable everyday reality. So let's step back and look at the final blueprint we've pieced together. When you combine these massive pillars with the day-to-day bureaucratic machine, you get a system of control that is remarkably durable and utterly terrifying. So this is it, the architecture in a nutshell. It's designed to solve that core problem of how the few can rule the many. It's built on a pillar of strategic brutality, which is meant to terrorize the population. It's supported by a second pillar, strategic deportation, which is designed to atomize them, to break their communities into powerless little pieces. And the whole thing is held together by a bureaucratic structure that makes the system feel permanent and inescapable.
And this, of course, leaves us with one final and pretty uncomfortable question. This whole architecture, this blueprint, it was designed for ancient empires, right? But the core principles, using fear to control people, breaking up communities to crush dissent, using bureaucracy to make power seem legitimate, well, none of that is really ancient, is it? So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we see the echoes of this iron architecture still standing around us today?